Hello, everyone. I am Sam Eckmann of Gold Derby. Here with me is Timothy Good and Emily Mendez, who are nominated this year at the Emmys for Outstanding Picture Editing for The Last of Us. And this is your first Emmy nomination for both of you. So congratulations. What was it like seeing your name on that list of nominees?
I mean, it's incredible. And to be with that caliber of editors and to be recognized by editors is absolutely, it's just amazing. And Emily, your story, I think, is my favorite. So please tell Sam about this.
Well, it really is such an honor to be nominated. And for me, the morning when the list was like released, I had my family all on a Zoom call and we had watched the video that played where they were like live announcing like who was nominated, and they only covered so many of the participants. And so then they were like, oh, well, there's a whole list on the on our Emmy website. So I shared my screen with my family and we were going down the list. And then when we get to the editing category, it was like everyone just screamed, and it was really special. So it was a very exciting day. It's still exciting. It's still surreal. And I'm just blown away. So
That's amazing. I love that.
yeah.
Uh, and this, if we dive into this episode, you're specifically nominated for Endure and Survive. And the video game is already so cinematic when you play it. So when you think about the cinematic nature of the show, did you go back to the game at all? Was it important to sort of go back and figure out how do I get the essence of this, or make sure you forge your own path there? How did you relate to that?
It was a interesting way we did, and one of the ways we did is that I never played the game and I still haven't. So that was my sort of slightly risky at the beginning strategy that turned out to be actually quite good, because it allowed us to really just focus entirely on the story that was being presented to us and the performances by our wonderful actors, and then the scripts by Craig, and they were just absolutely wonderful scripts. Now, and then Emily had played the game, but had not played the game for a bit. So we never really we never came back to the game. Only one point did Craig asked me, hey, maybe you should look at the game. And it was for the very last scene of the season. And I kind of was like, I don't want to. Let me do it first, and then I'll look at the last scene in the game, and then I can compare it. And when I did, it was almost the same. And I was like, wow, we must really be in sync at this point, because we were just literally lining up with how they did it.
Well, you do get some new, this episode has some new set pieces in it because this city isn't even in the game. And one of my favorite moments is when that truck is barreling down towards Ellie, and everyone is trapped in that cul-de-sac, and it looks so imposing and terrifying with the huge battering ram on it. So what is the key to a scene like that in terms of ramping up the tension?
For me, it's always grounding it in the character. And so it was about how it was chasing after Ellie, and how that Pedro could see its target, or Joel could see the target of Ellie. And for me, it was always about figuring out how to architecturally build that sort of triangle between the truck and Joel and Ellie. And then Sam and Henry are leading the way. They would be part of the collateral damage, but there was a specific moment where I saw the truck kind of start moving a little bit faster, and I made sure I put a very loud acceleration sound of the truck right at the moment where it's about to get to Ellie. And on the mix stage, it wasn't there at first. I'm like, no, it has to have a big to get forward so that we really do think that it's targeting. So at that last moment, we wonder if Joel is going to actually fire and shoot the driver. So that's one of the ways I would do it. And another way is extension. That truck didn't run for as long as the scene does. And so a lot of the things that I like to do are to elongate a little bit the run of the truck. So I think it probably hit a couple of cars twice. But it is worth it in the end, because if it goes by too quickly, it's just over, and therefore the audience doesn't feel that sort of buildup of tension. So those are the two ways I would I approach that sequence.
And just after that, you have that incredible moment where the infected all pour out of that hole in the ground, and there is that scene is so chaotic. There's individual fights, there's people getting bitten, there's gunfire. How do you take a moment like that where there is just chaos and make it clear for the viewer to follow the action?
Well, Emily, why don't you answer about on this one?
I think that as far as this scene, this battle sequence, it's massive, and Tim took the lead on this one, but we both worked on it in certain ways, and so essentially the key to this sequence is that it becomes a story of Joel and Ellie. So it boils, no matter what's happening, when we have this everything going on, it's boiling down to Joel protecting Ellie and getting her out of this situation. So that, I think, was the key to this sequence and when it really started coming together. And we had tons of footage, lots of different things going on, and Tim did a wonderful job just getting everything in there, and that way Craig could like see it and then be like, okay, we need to make this more of a story of Joel and Ellie. And so we would do things like, there's even some sound things that we worked on to be like, Joel's rifle sounds a very certain way. So we were always connecting to them, always kind of, putting that story forward. And yeah, it's an amazing sequence.
Yeah, and we had all of these moments that Joel was firing at other characters and the infected and the bloater that's coming out. And ultimately, when Craig and I looked at it together, we said this is not what we need to be doing, because that's outside of the focus of the story. And the story is that Joel is now realizing that he is protecting her as though she is his daughter. And he's realizing that when she goes into that van and the child infected, the child clicker goes inside that van and he can't protect her, he starts having his very first panic attack that reminds him of the moment that he couldn't save his daughter. And she saves herself, thankfully. And that's the beginning of that sort of understanding, I think. And that's a pivot point for the character of Joel, where he starts to realize that, oh my gosh, I'm not trying to save anyone but her.
Yeah. And I think, for many viewers, the art of editing might become more obvious to them in an action sequence like that. But I think it's just as important in a quieter moment, which this show really oscillates back and forth. The quiet moments of stillness are really paramount to the success of the show. Like in this episode, when they find Ish's little bunker there with the remnants of the children, what has to change for your process when you have a slower, quieter character moment like that?
That's a really good question.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Why
That's
don't
what I
you
love
start?
about, yeah, I love that about the show, because you're right, that does happen in the show a lot. And I think this episode is such a great example of that balance. It's a very delicate balance. So we have this massive battle sequence in this episode, but then we have these, like you said, quiet moments. And what's cool about that specific moment is we're kind of going from this horror, like scary kind of scene, where they're in the tunnel, they don't know what's in there. And so you're going from that fear into this tunnel, and then they're seeing these paintings and you're like, wait, is this scary? And so it's a fun thing to work on. And I think for me, it's just a matter of staying true to the characters and staying with them and how they're reacting to the scene, how they're feeling in that moment. So when they're in this tunnel, they're seeing these paintings, they're like, oh, well, what's going on? And once they're in this settlement, it's like this moment of kind of magic where Ellie and Sam can be kids again for a minute, and Joel and Henry are still like, they're still like searching and making sure that they're safe, like they don't want to just accept that it's okay. And so I love that scene. And I think it's a beautiful little moment of just allowing everyone to kind of take a breath. And I think that's what's awesome about the show is it helps you connect with these characters even more, because you're experiencing these moments of like Ellie and Sam looking at comics and being kids and like, sharing this moment. And I think that that's really great.
Yeah, and then you did a beautiful job of elucidating sort of, Henry's ability to sort of noodle Joel and say, I know who you are. I
Yeah.
know I know that you're a father. I know these things. And all of those things sort of they snowball as character. And ultimately, the reason why the audience cares so much, I believe, about these characters is because of the way that Craig and Neil have built these characters so beautifully, and how the actors have done it. And our job as editors is to allow those moments to land, so that they don't just fly by and you miss them. It's our job to make sure that you feel Joel's discomfort when he's being told these things, and then you could see him, say, we got to get out of here. I can't stay here anymore. You're in my face too much. So it's all about, the quieter moments, I believe, are critical to the plot and the big battle sequences, because they add the texture.
Yeah. And when I think about the actors in those quiet moments, they spend a lot of time in close up, which I feel like leaves you as the editors with a lot of power and ability to shape the performances. So when you're looking for a take, what is kind of the thing you're looking for the perfect take?
Oh, that's a great question, Sam. Wow. Ultimately, truth, and truth is subjective. And so it is, for me, it's a connection to the moment, if that makes any sense. There's a feeling when you see an actor performing a take and you go, they're really connected to this moment and this story in a way that maybe I don't feel in the other takes. And then sometimes there are parts where they're really connected in the first half, and then they somehow get disconnected in the second half. Maybe there was a sound that happens in the middle of the scene off camera that threw their focus off, and then they do another take, and then they're slowly getting into it. By the end, they're really good, and then you just go, I'm going to switch between the two of the takes. But in general, it's like, I just feel like it has to be believable. I have to believe it first, and then from that point, it's about building all of these believable and sort of connective moments together to make something that would feel natural, and to create a rhythm of dialogue, of conversation that feels appropriately natural as well. Emily, would you
Yeah,
anything
that's
else?
very, I totally agree. I think for me, it's like a feeling sometimes when I'm watching footage and I'm like, oh, this take, I just feel something. So I'll mark it so I know. And while I'm watching through dailies, I'm looking for things like also for like geography and clarity and story. And so like we're looking through all of these pieces of footage, kind of like using them as building blocks. Like, okay, well, I know in this scene I have to get this character from point A to point B, so I don't want that to be confusing, but also I want to stay true to their emotional journey here. So I really liked this performance here, so I'm going to make sure I use this for this piece. So it's all like a puzzle and finding pieces that build to get the story to its truest place, but also it's just sometimes feeling. So we're trying to do a good balance of all those things. So we're still being clear, we're still being true to the story, but we're also feeling emotion with the characters. And that's kind of, the general feeling of when I'm looking through dailies.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And you two, I would love to know more about your collaboration too, because I believe you both worked together on Umbrella Academy, which Peter Hoare, who directed one of the episodes, I think also is featured
Yeah,
there.
Yeah.
absolutely.
So
We love Peter.
what does that do for you when you have like a pre-existing relationship? How does how does that affect your collaboration process?
It's wonderful, and the thing is that because Emily was my assistant editor to begin this series and became the editor alongside me. It's a tremendous story of not only the trust that I have in her, but the trust that Craig Mazin had in Emily, which is one of the great things about working on Last of Us is having that trust from Craig, and then having this pre-existing relationship was it made every challenge that came in front of us, it seemed easy. And I know that sounds crazy, but we were just never worried because we have a shorthand. We talk about every single scene together. We go back and forth. We're not scared to hurt each other's feelings because we know each other. And ultimately, we're always just trying to, as Emily said, get to the best place for the story, the characters, and the emotion. We don't care how we do that. And ultimately, having that relationship just speeds things along. And for me, it's just been a blessing. It really has. And to have done 7 of the episodes out of 9, 4 of them with Emily, I don't remember feeling stress. And I think it's because we have this relationship.
Yeah, it's really the best relationship ever. I mean, I'm so thankful for Tim and for Craig for giving me the opportunity to edit on the show and to move up. And I think that, Tim and I have a great relationship, and we started working together in 2019 on The Resident season 3. And from the day that I started assisting him, he would be like, when you're done, with your stuff for the day, if you want to come and watch me edit scenes, like, that's totally fine. And so I took him up on that offer, and I would go and I would watch all these surgery scenes with him because I would wanted to know how he would do it. And he would talk me through. And I just have absorbed so much from him over the years. And I think that it's just amazing, his whole approach to editing. And so it's been great to be able to edit on this show together. And we just have so much fun doing it. And like Tim said, we'll show each other scenes, and then we'll just be like, okay, well, what about this? Or I wasn't feeling this way when this happened, but I think it could be better if we did. And so it's just a matter of collaborating, and it's a beautiful process that we share together. And I loved every second of it.
Well
Yeah.
put. Well, before we go, I love to ask editors this question, because editing is vital to any series or film, but for many people viewing it, it's kind of an invisible art, right? It's not necessarily the thing that is coming to the forefront of their mind. So for you, what's kind of a reaction or something you look for in a fan reaction, a viewer reaction, that makes you say, oh, I did it. We got it right there.
God.
Well, I have an example
go
of
for it.
something
Yeah,
we
go for it.
experienced. So
Oh, yeah.
we had a viewing party for the episode Left Behind, because that one is very special to me. I have a lot of just personal attachment to it. And so my family was in town, and I invited some friends and Tim, and they were all over my house, and we were watching the episode. And so when it got to the point in the episode when the infected wakes up, the entire room changed, like, after that point, because they were waiting for the infected to come out. They didn't obviously know when he was gonna attack. And Tim and I were looking around like, oh my God, like, everyone is tense. And my mom was like scared, and like, she doesn't like being scared. And so like that, it was just so funny. Like, but that for me was like, okay, like, this really works. Like, they are so tense. So that's just an example that I actually experienced. It was really cool to see a group of people react to that. So.
And through every scene, they were scared.
Yeah.
Even
Yeah.
if we were like, that ain't happening here, and they didn't know, so we just sat there and we're like, all right, keep feeling scared. This is good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then for me, it's like, I'll give you an example, like the episode 3, the long time that Peter Hoare directed, that I was lucky enough to edit. Just the ability to see people who may not be part of my, our community, LGBTQIA, to react in a way that they see value and love in a way that is just universal. That to me is there's absolutely nothing better to me than to see that, to feel that other people can sense the universal sort of love that these characters had for each other. So that's my favorite thing.
And I think also, like, seeing this beautiful fan art, like the fan art for me, like seeing people put like taking these scenes and making these beautiful pieces of art because it touches them in a way to spend that much time creating it. I think that's a really cool thing to see too. So
There's lots of fan art out there. Well,
yeah.
both of those episodes were quite beautiful. Thank you so much to you both for sitting down and talking with me.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for having
all
us.
of The Last of Us. If you're out there watching, subscribe to Gold Derby. Stay with us this season. And Tim, Emily, thank you so much again.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you, Sam.